So we're going to start off with this little anecdote. In the 1920s, the average lifespan of a company in the S&P 500 index was 67 years. Today, it's 15. If we keep going at this pace, 10 years from now, 3/4 of the index will be made up of companies we have not yet heard of. So the driver of change is technology, no surprise. How to survive really depends on running effective operations, and as part of those operations, develop new businesses that meet users' needs and shed old businesses that doesn't. So to put that simply, big or small, if you don't focus on users, you're dead. Let that be the backdrop of our talk.
I'm Petra Wennberg Cesario. This is Erik Wingren. We are the partners in a small product design or digital product design studio in Pasadena called Interactivism. We're 2 blocks that way. Literally, if all of you in the front here would stand up on your toes, you could see into our offices. We have known each other for about 10 years. We met at Idealab. We worked at different companies together, with startups, consulting together, and our team is about 8 people strong right now, with UX designers and developers. And we work on anything from startups, mobile apps, to large, complex enterprise software. I think that the key here, though, what we're doing differently, is that we're focusing on research and really understanding the user's needs as part of our process. That's how we differentiate ourselves, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, is why that is important and why that's ultimately smart business.
So, backing up a little bit, why does design matter? So, drugs are apparently cool. Let's do some drugs. The designer, whoever designed this, did not think through all the use cases. You're late for a meeting. Wait. All right, that's better.
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number.
So, design is not just about making things pretty. It's about making things work. Faster, better, cheaper.
So let's take a step back. UX is a broad term that is used a lot. What does it mean? UX stands for user experience designer, the user being the key word here. And so, I know this is early in the morning, you probably haven't had your breakfast yet. Thought I'd use some metaphors that we could all relate to. You know, breakfast, broken down into pieces, these are the product requirements. All the data, neatly stored in a silo. This is the UI, what is the tactile, kind of how does it feel, what you hold in your hand. And together, you put it all together, it's the user experience. It's really the sum of all things. So, breaking it down into more academic way.
So, as this serial example hinted at, UX touches on a lot of things. It really is made up of 3 core disciplines that then in turn overlap with a lot of related fields. So at the bottom we have information architecture, structuring information and pages to facilitate user navigation. And we have interaction design, defining application flows and how users interact with functionality to aid user tasks. And then finally visual design, which is a visual treatment of user interface elements, text, illustrations to facilitate understanding. And then we have all the related stuff: architecture, industrial design, human factors, cognitive sciences, motion and sound design, computer science, and last but not least, content strategy.
So UX is, as I said earlier, it's really the kind of sum of all these things together. And really UX, if you compare, there are a lot of design studios, especially here in Los Angeles, that focus on really glossy, beautiful products. A lot of those agencies focus on beautiful UI. And it's visual design, it's really nice, but it doesn't necessarily take in the core experience of the user. Is the experience frustrating to use? Is it easy to use? Does it complete the task quickly and efficiently? So I think what we do as an agency is really focusing on that whole experience and making sure our products are delightful, easy to use, and efficient. And one thing that we try to do in connecting with users is that we're really trying to evoke emotion. And emotion is a lofty big word. It is, but it is really what drives loyalty. So if you break that down, if a user has an positive emotional experience with your product, they're 6 times more likely to actually buy or purchase, 12 times more likely to recommend the product to their peers or friends, and 5 times more likely to forgive any mistakes that you do. Look at Apple as an example. Their product history is riddled with mistakes, but we're all loyal and go back and buy that iPhone 7 anyway.
So, how do we measure the impact of UX? Well, there are many ways. We like this framework called HEART. It was developed by Google. HEART stands for happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and task success. So you build this framework by, for each quality, you specify a goal, an agreed upon goal, a signal that can be measured, a signal that can be observed, and a metric that can be measured over time. So let's do this. In this example, we're going to use engagement. So
that's not the right brand color.
That's not the right color. So our goal is going to be for users to enjoy content and keep discovering more to engage with. The signal that can be observed is the amount of time that users spend engaged with your content. And the metric is the average amount of time users spend on content per user per day. Fleshing this, we encourage our clients to work on this on an ongoing basis, but the fact is just filling out this matrix is quite an enlightening exercise. And then, take one quality per sprint, per month, per quarter, and just kind of grind away. It's going to up your product. Most people that think about ROI, when you say ROI, they think about money in. ROI, that's correct. That's what we would think of as direct ROI. Indirect ROI ties more to save costs, reduced costs. An example here, one of our favorite examples, is how engaging UX early on can, on an average, shorten software development time by 30 to 50%. So, take that as an example. A company with 10 engineers that engages UX early on actually has the output of 20 engineers. Could have the output of 15 to 20 engineers.
So when do you and how do you engage UX? Short answer to that is often and early. But to kind of take a step back and get an understanding of where we fit in and how we think about the overall design process and how it relates to the product development process, a step back. So in the beginning, and a lot of companies still use the waterfall process, which is these siloed steps that is handed off from one team to another. And it is a good process if you know exactly what you're building and there's a time-boxed experience and it needs to be delivered. There's a specific scope and timeline, right? But one of the problems with this is that if users are exposed to the product, it's usually not until the very end. And so that when you go through this process, it gets exponentially harder to make pivots or changes. And when you're in the very end, it becomes super hard to make any fundamental changes.
Expensive and hard.
Yeah. So then out of that came Agile, and a lot of you are probably familiar with Agile. It is an iterative process, and it's focused on velocity. And getting feedback from users as part of it is great. However, because the product is usually released with its existing users, you get it could get a false positive when you release something, because maybe a part of your audience has already dropped off 3 sprints ago. So it is a siloed experience in that sense, that you don't get a full breadth of the user, your user input.
Which then in turn led to Lean. It answers the question, is there a market for what we're building? The basic principle is iterative development of product that meets the needs of early users. That's a great concept, and there's a lot of good things about Lean thinking. The problems with Lean is that it tends to foster features versus whole products. It tends to, it has a relentless focus on efficiency, and that leads that often leads to, it fosters safe products rather than moonshots. So how would you develop Google AdWords or Amazon Prime fastly and cheaply? How would you validate a concept like that fastly and cheaply? That takes a lot of rounds, and it takes a lot of vision. So how do you know that we're building the right thing, the thing that our intended users actually want to use? Well, we do that by putting users at the beginning, middle, and end of the process. So we start by mapping the context of using this product, observing the users, observing their behavior, their motivations, their attitudes, studying their workarounds, their successes and their frustrations, and we build a point of view. Not until this point do we start what most people think of as the design process. That is to say, concept solutions, and prototype and test, the most promising ones. And if we discover there's a fundamental flaw in our thinking, we can pivot. We go back to the drawing board at this point. Well, at the end of the day, customers don't really care if we are agile or lean or practice design thinking. They want products that solve real problems efficiently. So how do we get there? Well, we think the best way to do this is to put it all together. So after prototyping and testing, and we've arrived at a design solution that we feel reasonably confident about, we start building it in sprints, and we measure how that product is performing. We draw learnings from that, and then when we feel confident, we know we have something that is either ready to release or not, and we pivot and we go back, and the loop continues. I think the common ground here, and this is something that pretty much Agile, Lean, or everybody can agree on. We work in short cycles. We focus on user value, always. You test early, you test often, you rinse and repeat. I think, if there's one takeaway that adding design thinking into this process adds, it is the concept of resist the temptation of working on solutions until the problem is well defined. So, enough abstraction. Let's talk about some examples.
So in the beginning of e-commerce, this was a pretty common use case where you've placed, you browse through the content, you want to purchase something, but then you get thrown this interface where you have to either log in or register. this particular company decided to, instead of putting people through this wall, they changed the register button to continue as a guest. And this increased, for this particular vendor, increased the revenue for 1 year with over $300 million. So that's a good example.
Seemingly tiny tweak. This is a local Pasadena-based startup called Scouttables. They're revolutionizing the way professional sports teams manage financial risks around their most valuable assets, meaning athletes. So the biggest line item for sports team is their payroll, their athlete payroll. Contracts dictate that when players get hurt, they obviously can't play, but they still get paid. So there are disability insurances out there, but they are crude and they are not very efficient. It's essentially a betting game. So Scouttables is a big data company. They crunch a lot of data to make a lot more sophisticated underwriting decisions that ultimately are more correct and ultimately a lot more fair to everyone involved. Our challenge was to, building an underwriting platform is a big complex problem. So how do you communicate how that's going to work? Our solution was to build a demo app, kind of a sandbox app. So we took the use case, the kind of phantom use case of a mobile app for a fan in the stands. Like, how can you grok? How can you take a couple of slices of data that is more relevant than others and visualize that so that anybody can look at it and kind of make sense of it. This was supposed to happen in 3 months, and Petra and I are both from Sweden. We don't know anything about baseball, which actually turned out to be kind of a blessing in disguise. We could walk into this problem kind of with a naivete that allowed us to kind of challenge all the fundamental assumptions. So we sat down with baseball insiders and talked to them about what are the most important out of all these slices of data that are available to us. What are the most important ones when you're evaluating a pitcher or a batter or a matchup between the two? And then so we got a couple of slices of data, and then we sat down with applied math graduate students from Caltech and talked about visualization, and then applying kind of design thinking to that. What happens when you're going to show this on a small screen? And out came this app. And by doing that, I think by limiting the scope and kind of focusing the type of data that we were gonna look at, we were able to set priorities for the technical end of the project that would allow us to actually build this and launch it within 3 months. This app is available. It's for free. It's on app.scouttables.com. If you're a baseball fan, you can check it out. It uses live information during season at the end of every day. It downloads MLB data and updates all the players. It essentially generates a player profile once a day during season. It works today, but you're looking at past seasons.
This is we did a project where we're having an ongoing client relationship with a company here in Pasadena called MetaCloud. They are a premium on-prem cloud storage solution. It's a software as a service. And they're using a platform called OpenStack. And OpenStack is an open source software that, so they were using this, but there were constraints about how much they could customize the software. But they wanted to differentiate themselves from their competitors by design. So what we did was that we developed a UX and UI system so that they can customize all their client-facing products and all of their experiences are consistent and easy to use. We have worked now on all their different touch points, We believe that what we did had a big impact on the fact that they got acquired by Cisco in 2014.
Who recognizes this one? All right, there's a couple of hands. So this is an example of focusing on the essence of an offering. So all the big 800-pound gorillas in this category were busy competing on how many blades they could fit into a handle, and signing A-list celebrities as spokespeople. Dollar Shave Club came out of nowhere and focused on the essence of what that offering could be. Essentially, a decent razor auto-magically delivered to your door for $1 a month. And they didn't see what was, the big guys did not know what was coming. We worked on the UX of their launch website, and we focused a lot of that attention on the checkout funnel, which for a subscription commerce business is about 99% of the business. And they raised about a little north of $160 million in 4 years since launching. And then in July of last year, they were acquired by Unilever for a cool $1 billion. So before we do questions, we just wanted to plug this free event. We do, once in a while, we do office hours. Our next event is this Monday at 4 p.m. You can get the details and you can RSVP on our website under events. It's an RSVP is required because seats are limited. So welcome to it.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for your detailed analysis of what you guys do and the value of UX designers. How many people here have worked with a UX designer before for their app or whatever it is that they're working with? Raise your hands high. That's actually a decent amount of people. That's awesome. I actually had that personal experience myself, and they are invaluable because they can validate or invalidate your idea quickly before you start developing it, which gets very expensive. And that whole waterfall process is a very antiquated system. So, and they're totally current. I love it. I read Erik Wingren's Lean Startup, so it's awesome. Anyway, enough of that. Opening up to Q&A now. John, walk around with the mic. If you have a question, raise your hand. Please save your comments for offline. Will you guys be able to hang out with us a little bit afterwards to share stories and all that stuff?
For sure.
Okay, cool. So comments later, questions now. Thanks.
That's a rockin' PowerPoint. Will you be willing to share it afterwards?
Yes, we can.
Thanks.
Anybody else have a question? Your marketing process, as far as selling your services as a UX designer consultant, can you talk a little bit about that process?
Well, we've been lucky enough to do most of our business just pure word of mouth. Petra and I have worked in this field for 10 plus years all over town. Much longer, okay. We worked together for 10 years in various constellations. So, I mean, what we do, we to be honest, only recently have we started doing kind of structured marketing. We do kind of this type of outreach. We do the office hours. We're dabbling a little bit in kind of ads, left and right. The challenge is that, for us to be able to do a good job, we really need kind of an intimate relationship with the client. There's a lot of trust that needs to be there, and that's not going to come from kind of shotgun approach. You need to have like real conversations with people. So it's more about quality than quantity, and that's a challenge. but we're kind of chipping away at it.
Hi there. I'm launching a political tech platform in like 2 months called Lawmaker, and UX was our big problem in our beta. So we brought in a UX team about 8 or 9 days ago, and they've been doing really, really great work. And because I'm not very bright, the only thing that I can contribute to these UX conversations is like, hey, Amazon does this really cool thing in this way, or Netflix, or any of the big guns, Facebook. And our UX guy often says, there's a lot of bad UX out there. You don't need to copy bad UX from other people. My thinking is that Facebook, Netflix, they're all A/B testing like crazy. They most likely have great examples. So where do you guys take your UX inspiration, especially for startups who are in the kind of the beg, borrow, steal mentality of their lives? Where are good places to take UX inspiration from?
I think you're partly right. There are a lot of big companies that do a lot of A/B testing, that do a lot of user experience or user research and testing. So yeah, if you want to get some kind of general broad guidelines, looking at Amazon or looking at Apple, looking at Google, are good resources to kind of just glean. I think it's really important when it comes to, there are certain kind of pattern libraries, like we got the Google pattern library that is really good for kind of basic guidelines for how to do something, but that ultimately the experience needs to be tailored towards your users. So really understanding your user is the core experience in designing an effective product. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, there's the saying, good designers borrow, great ones steal. So there's what she said.
Actually, well, it doesn't do a lot of mansplaining anymore.
Next question's over here. Right here.
Hi, my name's Juan. Could you share with us an example of when it was very obvious to you guys that you needed to pivot, but your client needed some persuading?
Well, we have a kind of a story about what not to do, and I think that we worked with a startup that had a web platform of a product, and they wanted to translate into a mobile app. And they were so sure about what they had built, it was well received on the web, so they thought it was going to translate really well to a mobile app. And we were, of course, arguing that we should probably do some user research and understand what how people would be using the mobile app versus the web app. But they didn't want to do that. And so 18 months later, they were still kind of gung-ho on their own features and product requirements. And we were trying to get them to understand that if you haven't spoken to users, you're probably not going to get an effective product. And they still haven't received the traction. So in a sense, I'm not answering your question because we weren't able to convince them, but they're kind of feeling the effects of not talking to users. So, do we have an example of where we've actually pivoted?
No, yeah, no. I think that's a good example. They went into trying to pivot, the conditions and the context changed, and they wanted to keep going with the assumptions that they had built and felt that they had validated 2 years earlier. And primarily, I don't think it was that they didn't, it was primarily a cost saving to them, and for a fraction of that opportunity cost, we could have course corrected earlier on in that process.
Over here.
Hi. With the rise of AR and VR, so augmented reality and virtual reality, how is that impacting UX these days? And what are you seeing with your clients, if I may ask?
A lot. It is really a kind of a new design paradigm, and there are new techniques that needs to be taken into account. We're starting to see these requests come through. People are thinking about them. I think augmented reality is kind of closer to kind of flat 2D design, because you're not it's not completely immersive. It's not upside down. That said, you know, a lot of the kind of methodology that goes into it is ultimately the same. You kind of just have to back out 5 years. A lot of the UI design is almost like going back to the first mobile phones. You know, buttons need to be big. You know, you're pushing them with your whole, you know, your whole hand. Yeah.
Yeah, but as you were saying, the process of getting to the final product is often the same. So the design process can be applied in this instance as well. Just how you prototype and test something is going to be different. You're going to have to create a kind of a 3D, a virtual experience in paper as your first prototype probably. And you need to consider the Z space, which is the depth in where you are placing things, whether things are anchored to your own space or whether it is anchored to your arm. So there's a lot of just different things that to think about, and the bluntness of the tools, and yeah.
Time for one more.
Yeah, in Sweden or in Scandinavia, there's a lot of UX for like material product design. Like, what makes you and why did you end up doing like UX for digital products here?
So neither of us have really worked we came here, but both of us came here during grad school, kind of independently of each other. For us, it was, you know, it was just the time and the time and the I would say it's more circumstance than anything. It's you know, we grew up in the late, we came into this field in the late 90s, and that's what, you know, that's when UX of digital products was more needed than anything. And I would say it still is today. I mean, it's a field. It's a steadily growing field. I mean, more and more services are moving into digital, and you know, there's a lot of shitty design out there.